Welcome to Secrets of a Bridal Seamstress podcast, where we hear stories from fellow seamstresses just like you. We're able to share their success stories. We learn from wedding industry pros for the best business tips, and we get to hear from fellow sewists and crafters to hopefully inspire our creativity and our love for sewing. I'm so glad that you're here. And if you're a bridal seamstress, I'd also like to invite you to check out our Bridal Seamstress business membership. We have a community of women that can testify to the power of genuine connection, friendship, vulnerability, the power of our six-figure seamstress method, and a genuine connection found in a business mentorship like this. All right, let's dive into the episode. Welcome back to Secrets of a Bridal Seamstress podcast. I am here with Whitney and Daniela from Wedding Industry Ads, and they are here to talk about advertising. I think a lot of us seamstresses feel like we can bypass this step because, we're in demand, but there are some listeners who are just getting their businesses off the ground, and they're like, I would love to learn how to effectively run an ad. But it's kind of crazy out there. Meta sometimes can be scary to navigate. So I'm so happy to have you two as the pros to tell us what to do. So can you start by telling us how you even got in this industry and how you knew you could work together? Because I also have, I'm really impressed that you're two friends that work together in business. So give us the history of that.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to be here and just to share with your community. Whitney and I met in an advertising program, actually. It was in a coaching program, a mentorship program, where we were learning to deepen the skills of advertising specifically. We both kind of had a little bit of experience in marketing already, and I'll let Whitney tell her story because she has a longer history working in the wedding industry than I do. But it was back in 2020 that we actually met through that program, and we hit it off right away. We started collaborating on clients together. And then, long story short, we got a wedding venue client, and that's when Whitney actually had the idea to branch out, niche down, and start this thing together that was a little bit more focused on this specific group of people within this specific industry. And it's been really fun to serve this community ever since.
Yeah, so you had the COVID trauma bonding in there as well.
We did, a little bit, yeah. What's funny, too, is that we worked together. We talked every day for years before we actually met in person.
Oh, my goodness. So I feel like that makes a lot of sense because sometimes when you start off as friends and then start a business or attempt to start a business, that's when it gets kind of weird. But when you're business-minded to begin with and then the friendship grew from that, that is so cool. So Whitney, what was your history in the wedding industry? Because now I want to take a deeper dive into that.
Definitely. So before I got into the world of digital marketing, I had a 12-year career in the wedding and events industry in Austin, Texas. So I started off working at venues, selling weddings, coordinating weddings, then moved more into the hotel and resorts world, working for Omni and then Fairmont as a senior catering sales manager and then director of catering sales. And really, at the time thought this was this is it. I've kind of I've made it. I'm a director now. I've made it to the top. And then COVID happened. And I was furloughed, it forced me to stay home and really kind of take a step back and really assess. And I realized just kind of how hard I had been grinding for so long, how I was really on autopilot, how there were things in my daughter's life that I was missing out on. She was about 18 months old at the time. And I got a taste of kind of stay-at-home mom life and was just okay, well, even when we go back to having events, I don't think I can go back. I don't want to go back. So it was this whole sort of self-discovery kind of journey, right? Of, okay, how can I work for myself? How can I be a business owner? How can I take the things that I already know and love and skills that I have and turn this into something where I can work for myself? And then that's where Daniela and I's worlds really kind of collided, right? Learning how to run Facebook ads. It was just called Facebook ads at the time.
Yeah.
In the online space. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that is so cool. Okay, and I don't even want to tell you my Facebook ad experience because it was very minimal, and I felt I think this is what I'm doing. This is what I should be doing. I've done it a couple times, and so when I saw this topic pop up, I'm okay, I know I'm not the only one who's thought about the ads and we want to learn how to do them. So let's talk about, I guess, the unnecessary complications that you see your clients come to you with. Because I think about myself, like I'm overcomplicating things when I think about like running an ad. So what's kind of common with your clients that you talk them through?
I love the way you asked that question, because I think that you're not alone in overthinking it and overcomplicating it. But on the same token, you know, it's not a straightforward platform. If you've ever actually logged into the Meta Ads Manager and you don't know where to go, it can be really confusing.
Yes,
so it's kind of like learning a new language at first. But like with any tool, you can do really amazing things and build with it. You can also break things with it and lose money. And so that's where I think a lot of that hesitation comes in for beginners. That being said, though, it doesn't mean that you can't run ads or that you need a huge budget in order to get started. I think what's most important is that you have clarity first around really what's your goal with using ads, because you can use ads for a lot of different means. So once you get really clear on what your goal is with the ads, where you're going to be even sending your ads traffic, what those next steps are, really think about where do the ads fit into the bigger picture of your marketing. That little point of clarity can give you so much direction on where to go next.
So let's talk about listeners who are local, like service-based businesses as bridal seamstresses. I mean, if you're a wedding pro listening, this will still apply to you because we're local, right? How would you like tailor your ad to serve this local community? Because I know that I've seen ads for, it's funny because I sew, I think that's why I'm like seeing these ads, but this person's in Kentucky and I'm seeing an ad and I'm in Washington State, so I'm like, why do I care like about your alterations business? So how does that happen? And where along the line was that step missed if I'm seeing ads for another local business that's like totally not local to me?
Great question. So Meta likes to try to kind of have like ultimate control a lot of times in kind of how your ads are like being fed out to people, right? And so if you don't have your targeting set up the exact right way, or if you have like a certain button clicked where it's like expand my audience to get better reach or things like that, Meta can kind of override anything that you've put in there in terms of like specific geographic targeting or even interest, and just say, oh, okay, well, let's show this to everybody and kind of like, you know, see who takes a bite sort of thing. And for you, you know, on your end, right, if you then watched that ad of a business that's in Kentucky, then the paid algorithm is starting to think, oh, Nadine is interested in alterations in Kentucky. Let me show her more that's in that area, right? So even the tiniest little things, if the setting is off, it can kind of skew things when it comes to the paid algorithm. So it's definitely something to be mindful of and look out for.
Yeah, when you said engage your reach, I'm sure like a majority of the people who are setting up their own ads, like they click on that because it's like, yeah, that sounds good. I do want to like widen my reach. So when you have a client that like books to work with you, what does that look like? Is it just like a one and done appointment? Do you work with them long term? Because I'm thinking of listeners who desperately want help with this. They don't want to spend too much money on ads, but they want guidance so that like every dollar counts. So talk us through what it would look like to work with you.
So we work with clients in a variety of different capacities, right? And I would say it's typically one of two different tracks. So we have a program called Elevate, where we just handle everything for you. So this is for this is for the business owner who is busy running their business. They have an established business. They want to be advertising on both Google and Meta simultaneously, and they also want like some funnels and automations in place to make sure that, you know, these leads that they're bringing in from ads are nurtured, right, and actually like turn into appointments and sales for them. So that's one way that we work with clients. But then we also have our accelerator programs. And these are a really great way for people to get started with ads, whether it be Google ads or Meta ads or both, but to tap into our expertise for more of like a one-time fee for us to help really kind of like get you launched, get things off the ground, and then really kind of teach you how to be able to manage things moving forward.
Okay.
So this is kind of where it comes into play what Daniela was saying earlier about like the way that you're going to want to use ads really depends on what your goals are with your ads, right? So you mentioned, Nadine, earlier, some people who are maybe just sort of getting started with their alterations businesses. For those folks, they probably don't already have like the organic search authority to where they're maybe showing up in the Google search results or showing up on Google Maps.
That is so frustrating for them. They're like, how do I like get ahead of this? Because they just feel so defeated like from the jump.
Yeah. So that's where a really simple Google search campaign could come into play, right? So if you're not already organically showing up for, bridal seamstress near me or, wedding alterations near me, things like that, you can actually bid on those keywords with a Google search campaign. You're actually telling Google the exact keywords that you want your business to be able to show up for. And the great thing about Google ads is that they are pay per click. So unless somebody is actually clicking on your ad and making it over to your website, you're not being charged ad spend from Google. So we often find that, for venues, wedding vendors across the board, it can be a really great way to get started with ads because it's capturing those high intent users. They're going to Google already trying to find somebody like you. So it gets you the visibility in front of them, gets more kind of likelihood of them clicking and finding you, especially if your SEO isn't quite yet where you want it to be.
Wow. Okay. I didn't realize that you were just charged per click. So then compare that to like a social media ad. Are you just charged for like the blast, not really the actual results?
So I would say with Meta, for example, there's a lot more variety with the types of campaigns that you can launch. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying about really understanding like how you want to use ads. So if you're already really into creating content, you love sharing your process, you love kind of showcasing your projects and what you're working on, then meta ads can be a really great way to increase the visibility of your content in front of specific people who you want to be seeing it. So again, there are different objectives and different kind of costs associated with each objective. So if we're starting off with a really small budget, you can put like $1 a day or a few dollars a day behind strategic pieces of content and make sure that people in your local area are actually seeing them. And people who are in that specific window of, I'm planning a wedding, I recently purchased a dress or gown, like I'm ready for this stage of work. That's what's been really fun about working with the wedding industry in particular, is it's a really unique challenge in terms of marketing because you really only work with each client one time. And because of that, you need a really consistent stream of leads and you need to stay visible in front of them so that when the time is right, they can self-qualify and they can book you and you're top of mind. So meta ads are really good at retargeting. They're really good at keeping you top of mind, and they're also really good at the storytelling element that helps build that relationship, build that trust, show what you can do. Whereas Google's a lot more keywords focused. It's more about high intent searchability, findability. So they can work really beautifully together, but I think also just understanding how each platform is unique can help you make decisions on where to start if you are just kind of getting your feet wet at the beginning.
Yeah. No, that's really exciting because I'm thinking like, okay, I'm like thinking of my like membership members. So I'm like, okay, her ads would do so much better on social media because she already is like more comfortable on social media. And then there are other women who I'm like, okay, let's just do Google because this is, they don't want their face on social media yet. They're still feeling like super like, scared to get their feet wet in that department. And so I love how you just have different options. And it really is, I know you mentioned this at the beginning of the conversation, like it's personalized to the client and like what they're actually already doing well instead of feeling like, okay, now I have to make a reel that's going to go viral and then push it even more viral or whatever. It takes the pressure off. Woo.
Yeah. Well, and also like to your point, in terms of taking the pressure off, it's really not about going viral. It's not about this high volume business model.
Right.
You don't need to work with, you don't need thousands of people on your email list when you are a one-to-one service provider.
Especially when you have it's like a one-time service.
Project at a time. Yeah. And so you mitigate those goals with what's actually your capacity, right? And so that can kind of help take the pressure off some of these vanity metrics that people are seeing around, how many likes am I getting? How much reach am I getting? Well, are the people that are seeing your content even in the right bucket of becoming a client of yours, or is it somebody who's in a totally different state who isn't even ever gonna, buy your service, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I think like really understanding your business model, what you're trying to get out of your marketing, how many leads you actually need, and it might not be that many, right? And so knowing that with that sort of pressure off, I just need to make sure that the right people are seeing this, and I can do that by selecting them through these platforms.
Yeah, I know I've mentioned this before I like how you mentioned the vanity metrics, because I know with my own local business, my local alterations business, I've talked about this before. Like, I had a great example last year of a sale that I was running on. It wasn't an alteration service, but it was like a cleaning service. Okay. And like the post that I shared about it, like, it didn't really get much interaction, like likes or comments. Certainly did not go viral because it wasn't viral material. Come on, it was about like cleaning a dress. But my DMs were popping and the links were sent to book the appointment. So I had 11 sales for this higher ticket service from those posts. But it's like, if you're just looking at like, okay, the engagement or the likes or how many people watched the stupid reel or the carousels, it's like, okay, that can feel kind of defeating. But when you are working with somebody like your team who are helping you address what your true goals are, like I think at the end of the day, our goals are just to make more money and to have our business work for us, right? So you kind of bring reality to the conversation, as opposed to, okay, just think about, how many views you're going to get or whatever. Exactly. Like, what is the point of actually using social media?
Yeah, it's not like a more is more is more game. It's okay, we have this specific goal. We can kind of reverse engineer it. Let's see what happens. Let's collect data. We'll measure everything along the way, and we'll make adjustments until we get to that goal. And then once we meet it, cool, now you're at capacity. What's next? Do you want to stop? Do you want to grow? Is it time to hire? Build a team? Get that brick and mortar? Or do you want to keep it here? Are you happy? Like, that's the fun part, when you kind of get to be turning little dials and making those adjustments. And okay, so can you think about maybe what was one of the biggest challenges? Because you kind of mentioned, the wedding industry comes with its own unique challenges, but can you think of a client that, obviously you'll keep anonymous, or maybe a project where you felt like, okay, how are we going to actually move the needle for this person, and then it worked? I want to hear about like the success stories that you wouldn't have anticipated.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can kind of speak to that in general a bit, right? Because a lot of times there's this preconceived notion that, like, in order to have success with ads, like, it's all about the ads. It's all about the targeting, how much you're spending, what the actual content of the ads is, right? But I think what a lot of wedding vendors don't necessarily realize when they're getting started with ads is what happens beyond the ads themselves are equally, if not more important, right? And sometimes that can be something that really gets overlooked. So it's definitely a part of our work with our clients, right? We'll have clients that'll come to us who they're like, I've tried ads, whether it be like DIYing or working with a freelancer or another agency, and are just like, it just didn't work for me, and I don't know why. And we tried all of these different things within the ads manager, and we do an audit, and we're able to say, okay, well, it didn't work because of where you were sending the traffic. Like, you didn't have the information that somebody would need in order to book with you on your website, or you didn't have a dedicated landing page for your ads traffic, or you had these leads coming in, but then you weren't following up with them. You didn't have a system in place. So what we find is that the clients who have the most success with ads aren't just running ads, they're creating true client acquisition systems, right? So it's about the ads, getting more visibility, getting more people into your pipeline, but then a system in place to actually turn those leads into booked appointments and, signed clients at the end of the day.
Yes. Okay, that's really exciting. Because, and again, it goes beyond just the metrics, but into like, it kind of causes you to delve a little deeper, because I didn't even think about that. Yeah, like, where are you sending the people once they click on your ad? Like, is the page even appropriate, or like, are they going directly to like your inquiry? Yeah. Right. Okay. So let me ask you that. Would you recommend the link taking a client directly to the inquiry page, or should it go to the homepage?
So what we typically like to do is send traffic to a long form landing page. So a sales page of sorts, really. So not just sending them directly to, a form where they're going to fill out some information, not even necessarily sending them to the homepage of the website, because there can be so many different avenues that people can take, different distractions, right? We like to send them to a dedicated landing page that has one goal in mind. Whatever the goal is of yours, right, of what you want to happen with that traffic. So for some, bridal seamstresses, for example, it may be that you just want them to fill out an inquiry form and kind of start the conversation with you. For others, it may be you want them in the door, right, for that like first appointment, and you're kind of doing more of that consultation in person sort of thing, right? So it would be creating a landing page that's really tailored to get them to do whatever it is that you want them to do next. But whatever that is typically is going to be capturing their information in some form, right? Whether it's just filling out that inquiry form so you can start the conversation, or actually, getting a booked appointment on your calendar for them to come in and meet with you.
Yes. Okay. And if you're listening and you're like, what the heck is a landing page? You may want to work with this team instead of having to figure out how to do that. Because I remember those days, okay, like back in, I think it was like 2019, I signed up for like an Amy Porterfield,
amazing.
Good old Amy. I feel like when you guys were talking about taking a course together, I'm like, oh, I'm sure we've taken similar courses. And I remember the days of like learning how to like build my own landing page, or, figure out like how the heck to start a podcast or whatever, like just doing all these things in such a scrappy way. And it like, there was some successes, but like that was so frustrating. And if I could do it over again, I would 100% just find someone else to do it for me and save me the headache. Oh my word. So that's your little hint. Okay, listeners, so if this sounds exciting for you, you're in the middle of sewing or whatever, don't worry about it. Just find the pros to do it for you. Can you think of a client who you're like, oh my gosh, this was like the best win, and like I want to hear like real examples of people who are struggling with this particular thing, and then this is what you did with their business, and then this is the results that they saw. For those of us who don't get the metrics world, okay, we want the fun stories.
Okay, so I can think of another one. And, as much as we recommend like landing pages and that like is a best practice, like don't get me wrong, if you have like a really killer website, especially like if you've, worked with, a branding or like website designer and you've launched something new, like you can send ads, Google ads especially, like directly there and see results. So I mean, that's a win that we had recently, to where the client worked with an amazing brand and web designer. I think Emily Foster. We're probably all kind of like in the same world. So launched this amazing, beautiful new website for this wedding business. We know though that especially when it was a new business, that it takes time to really get that SEO authority. They knew that they weren't going to be showing up in the Google results the way that they would have wanted to straight out of the gate. So they're like, okay, we've got this beautiful new website that we've just invested in. Let's run Google ads, right? Let's get some eyes on it. Let's get some leads in the door. And it worked incredibly. Like within the first 90 days of them running Google ads, it was something like 60 leads in the door, like 10 weddings booked. I mean, it was like a 3,000% ROI sort of thing. So
my goodness,
super powerful. Yeah.
And Emily Foster is like the queen of like SEO, adding that to your website.
Yeah, shout out
like,
Emily.
Thanks, girl. It was awesome. Because I mean, I think all of us, well, I shouldn't say all of us, but most of us, our first website is like, I did that myself, and we can go so far with that, but then it's time to kind of like, call in the big guns to like actually get it done the right way. And that was kind of a game changer for me too, because I needed more SEO to get the Google listing even higher. So that's what Emily really helped me with, because I didn't really understand, there are things that we get, there are things that we need professional help with, and so she made like such a difference in that little realm. And I also, that's another conversation within our membership of how, as bridal seamstresses, it's so important for us to have the relationship with feeder stores, like with bridal shops who like refer out to us. But there's also that, independence and autonomy that we want to have, where we can build our own business without having to depend on stores to like refer to us. And that's where, SEO comes into play, or like having a strong Google presence. So that's kind of been a new goal for many of our members is like, okay, yes, have these great relationships with local vendors, but can you stand alone if, heaven forbid, these other businesses close or whatever?
Exactly.
So how do you build that autonomy? So these kind of tools are so important because we don't want to be depending on others as independent businesses, or depending on those
and I
referrals.
Yeah, and I think to your point about investing in that foundational infrastructure, that's always going to, that's an asset that your business now owns. And when you're completely relying on these referral relationships, what ends up happening is that you don't have a lot of control over who actually gets sent your way. And you don't really have the ability to be super discerning on which clients or customers you say yes to. You kind of feel this pressure. Every lead becomes so important. When you have your own channel that you can create consistent leads through, two different things happen. One, the leads are going to behave differently because they're not referrals. So they don't have that trust by proxy. It's up to you to create that trust and bridge that gap. But on the other side of that, you get the opportunity to really create the message that you want to present to those people. And that marketing does two jobs. It turns people away who are not a good fit for you, and it solidifies the ones who are like the heck yes, like this is my person, this is who I trust. And when you're doing something like the work that you do, it's so intimate, it's so vulnerable, it's so like close proximity that trust, that sort of shared values, that existing sort of storytelling that you can do to sort of help people feel more comfortable moving forward is really, really important. So when you have a system in place that can accomplish all of those things for you, it gives you just a lot more flexibility on who it is you even choose to work with, right? Like potentially getting to the point where you have a wait list, and you can be even more discerning about the projects that you take on. Once you're at capacity, then it gets to be these exciting conversations around, are we building team? Are we increasing rates? Like, the demand is there, but that's where you can really become sort of the writer of your own story, really, rather than just relying on these other channels and hoping the right people get sent your way.
Yes. No, I love that. And then, because earlier in the conversation, you had mentioned that about when you're working with clients and they have these wins, it's like, okay, now we can open up all these other fun conversations that we couldn't have when you first started working with us. So when you have do you have long-term clients who just kind of say, take the reins? And so what does that look like? Like, are their first goals to book a certain amount of clients, and then how do you see that evolving long term, like their goals evolving?
I can think of a couple of examples, right? Like a lot of times clients are coming to us because, first and foremost, they want more leads so that they can sell more weddings, book more weddings. A lot of times they're coming to us initially more kind of as solopreneurs, and so the goal first is to kind of max out their own capacity, right? Of I want to get booked out sort of thing. But then from there, it becomes this really cool evolution because they're okay, well, now I'm in a position to actually start hiring a team and being able to book out my team, right? And then it can even start to evolve into okay, now I have the team that's doing the work and I'm really just running the business. I'm not in the day-to-day, doing the deliverables sort of thing. It can turn into kind of stepping into more of this CEO sort of role, really.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of a wedding planning client of ours who, completely just doubled her business year over year, grew a team. I was looking at her stories on Instagram earlier this week. She's I'm on vacation for 10 days sort of thing. She knows that the team back home is running things.
Oh, that's
We're
awesome.
An entertainment company that we work with that's a husband and wife team who, over the course of us working together over a year and a half or so, has just been hiring more and more team members to really kind of run the business in terms of taking sales calls, doing admin work. They're getting ready to have their first baby later this summer, and they're both in a position where okay, we know that the business can run with us being able to take a step back and take a couple of months off together to really be able to enjoy our growing family, and then we'll kind of step back into it when we can, sort of thing. So it's very cool to be able to see how people's professional and personal lives really evolve over the course of our work together, and how ads are really, the major mechanism that gets them there.
Yeah. I think it's cool, like, to your point, Whitney, the sort of business growth and the family growth, or sort of like the personal growth that happens on the other side of that, is so cool to see. And it's pretty common that we see that with especially our longer term clients. But another sort of way that you could see the growth is, rather than in this vertical, we've had other clients too so the photographer that I was mentioning before, she does wedding photography, but she also has another branch of her business where she's doing boudoir, and she used ads to really grow a pipeline on that side while still maintaining the visibility of her wedding side and not having confusion or blurred lines with the two sort of different messaging styles or different ICAs on both sides of those campaigns. So to be able to also expand the types of services that you do beyond maybe just one niche market is another way that people have grown with ads outside of just the more standard, like, building the team bigger or expanding the business in that way.
So when you get a client who gets to that point where they're like, okay, what do we do next? Now, like, we're like at capacity. Do you help them? Do you, like, guide them into, like, the other decisions that have to be made, or do you like refer out, or do you help them with the other steps of, like, expansion, or do you do other kind of business coaching? Because you're sounding very knowledgeable, so I'm like, is this something that you're doing, or are you like, oh, this is where you can go to have help with those other steps?
Yeah, great question. So, our services for the most part really are geared towards the advertising and funnels, but we get to have so many one-on-one conversations with our clients that it's like, if we see a need that's arising in the business, like, we're able to kind of, like, refer them to, a trusted partner, like, if we see that a rebrand would really serve a client, being able to refer them to somebody like Emily, or if, the leads are coming in, but they're having trouble closing these weddings, well, then, like, wedding industry specific sales coaches that may be able to help them, or, venue coaches for some of our venue clients who are really wanting to, create new income streams, or, add on lodging or bar packages, or all the different ways that you can grow, right? With us really being very specific in the wedding industry, we know a lot of really wonderful people. And so it's also so much easier too, I feel like, when you're not inside your own business, to be able from, like, a bird's eye outside view, to be able to say, oh, this is what you need, right? And kind of, like, make those recommendations for people.
Yeah, I would say also the experience that Whitney and I gained before really going all in on the wedding industry, we worked with a lot of different types of business owners, and we especially worked with a lot of coaches and consultants and experts that had personality-based businesses, really complicated funnels, lots of long-form, like, relationship building marketing built in. And so I think the experience that we gained from doing that, and sort of the depth of the tracking that goes into those sort of funnels, the intentionality behind the messaging at every step, we're bringing all of that to this industry and making it a lot simpler, but keeping it effective. And it's been working. It's really cool to see that we can take this framework and go through the steps of getting to know each client individually, customizing everything specific to them. And it's not ever the same. It's not a copy-paste situation, but it is a framework that we know works. And it has just continued to work with everybody that comes through. It's really cool to see.
Yeah. I'm so excited because I knew so little about this topic, and I didn't know how much it could impact businesses, and how much weight it can take off a business owner's shoulders I wish I had done this earlier in the game, I guess. I'm thinking back and I'm like, I could have saved myself, like, a couple headaches along the way. So what is your final advice to somebody listening who are thinking, I don't know if, like, my business is even worth it to invest? And I'm also going to add that I can put money on the fact that a lot of listeners think that they need hundreds of dollars a month to put into ads. Is that true?
So, we do typically recommend that if you were to get started with Google Ads, that you're spending about $500 a month there, right? Or if you were to really get started with Meta Ads and truly want that to be something where you're generating leads, again, probably about a $500 a month there. But to kind of piggyback off of our conversation earlier of, like, it really depends on what your goals are, right? Like, if your goal is just during busy season, I want to make sure that people are still seeing me on social media even when I'm too busy to actually post, then, you can have ads that are running that are a couple of dollars a day that just retarget the people who have visited your website, sort of thing, right?
Yeah, and what you just explained is probably like what's happening to like 75% or 80% of the listeners right now, where they're like hunched over their sewing machine, they haven't made a reel in 2 months, and the last one that they made, they want to make sure it gets some views. So there you go, girls.
Yeah. So, the budget and how much you spend and where you're advertising, again, it really depends on your goals. So I would say for anybody who this conversation has kind of like piqued their interest, we do have a resource for them to be able to check out. If they just go to weddingindustryads.com, they can download our ads investment guide. And it really is an educational resource, right? That kind of breaks down the differences between Google ads and meta ads, how to know if you should start with one or the other or even both, thinking about how much you should be kind of like spending on those different platforms as well.
Okay, I'm really excited. Oh, go ahead, Daniela.
Sorry, I have one more thing to say, though, because when you were talking about this investment and whether it's worth it or whether it's worth it to invest in your business, I cannot think of a more worthy investment than in yourself and in your business. If we compare, like, putting this money into the stock market, for example, you might see, like, 10% return year over year. If you're investing in yourself and your own business growth in these assets that are going to deliver leads for you indefinitely, like, the return on that investment is uncapped. It's uncapped. And even if your ads are a total failure, you're going to end up with so much more data and insight and information that you can then build on and grow from. And so there's really no bad investment when it comes to your own business and getting more leads at the door.
Yeah, that's such a great reminder. And like to think long term instead of like kind of those instant results. And also just kind of deferring to your knowledge instead of like what we think we might know about ads. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the stuff that we need to learn when we work with you.
There are a lot of misconceptions about ads, and I think advertisers can get a bad rap because these platforms are so powerful and they track a lot of what we do, and as consumers that can feel scary, but as business owners it's a really, really empowering tool. And so I would just suggest, if you're listening this far into a podcast, like, keep learning more, reach out when you're ready, download the investment guide to get a better idea of the little nuances that apply specifically to your industry, and know that the advice that's out in the world is not one size fits all advice. And so find people that are kind of in your world and look at what they're doing and listen and learn from them, rather than thinking that you're behind because of something crazy that somebody says that really might not even apply to your business model at all.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Okay, tell us where to find you. I'm very excited for listeners to get a hold of this.
So weddingindustryads.com is a great place, again, to grab our ads investment guide or learn about the ways to work with us. But we also hang out a lot on Instagram. So over there, we're Wedding Industry Ads as well. So come find us.
Perfect.
Yeah. Follow us, send us a DM. We'd love to meet you and start a conversation. I'm in the DMs pretty much every day. So, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, you know the next step, listeners. So what's holding you back? You might be changing the benchmark within just a few months. Okay, thank you both for your time. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Nadine.